Okay. I hope that everyone today is feeling peachy blessed. Um, I want to welcome everybody to In Celebration, where words jump off the page and make your imagination come to life. I'm Ms. Angie, your co-host, moderator, along with my partners in crime, Raw I Am, and Artemis. Artemis is under the weather. I hope she feels better. Raw, how you doing today? I'm mute, Raw.
I'm above ground and my heart hasn't exploded, so I'm still good. Still good to go.
Life's good and getting better. Um, so you got normal weather this winter in your neck, our neck of woods, and this we have a fake spring here and a tornado weather. Um, we are all apprentices in a craft where no one ever becomes a master. That's by Ernest Hemingway. It gives me great pleasure to spotlight the poetic rock and rhymes sisters with their authentic power to transform words that connect us, inspire us, and remind us of the strength within our shared experiences. Our celebrated rock and rhyme sister authors are Chyrel J. Jackson and Lyris D. Wallace. This dynamic duo they are real life sisters. Our distinguished authors are known as supernovas in the literary world. Ladies, how are you this evening?
We're
How
great.
you doing? How you
We
doing,
are
Alice?
good.
Thanks for having us.
I'm very, very excited to celebrate you two shooting stars. Okay,
Thank you
so
so much. Thank you for having us.
I am so excited to have you. Um, Tell us what inspired the two of you to write. It doesn't matter which one of y'all start. Lyris, you want to start? Cheryl, sit down like I'm not doing it first.
Uh, well, what inspired us originally was the way we grew up. We grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and we didn't have the typical, or what you say, a normal childhood. So we thought it would be interesting if we wrote a book about how we grew up. Then as we got older, uh, we both started writing for very different reasons. I started writing because um, at the time my life was going fast, and I was trying to catch up with what was happening to me in my life, and I couldn't understand why certain things was happening. So I figured, like, I just went back to my education, which was I was a journalism major in college, and all the classes that I took, they told us to keep a journal. And I said, okay, maybe if I kept a journal, I can understand what is happening to me. So I began to write in this journal, and one day I just picked the journal up and started reading the entries, and the entries sort of they read like a poem, and they had like a rhythm to them, and I was like, wow. I said, oh, I like that. So I kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I shared one of the poems with Chyrel, and she said, Lyris, we need to write a book. And and it was funny because later on that year
Hold on. I have to interrupt. Did she
okay.
actually say it like that? Lawrence, we need to write a book.
Yeah, she said we need to write a book. So what was funny about the whole thing is it was around Thanksgiving, and our oldest sister was at the dinner, at the dining room table, and I had written a poem for her, and Chyrel wanted me to read Felicia the poem, and I read the poem to her, and Cheryl said, "Oh, we're gonna write us a book. We're gonna write us a book." And it was funny because the next Thanksgiving we actually had a book. So, and it's all because of my sister Chyrel.
So what was the timeline? The time frame from picking up back your journal to that Thanksgiving where you had a book? How long was that time period?
Oh, believe it or not, it was like 10 years because I had started writing, and I think I started writing before my son was born, which was actually why I started writing, because I felt like my life was going on fast track, and I was trying to catch up, but I felt like I was on a treadmill and I couldn't catch up. I just couldn't catch up. Mm-hmm. So then when I finally stopped writing, it was like, I think, sure, how old was Joan? About 18?
No, so he was more like 16, going on 17.
Right. He was about 16. And that's when I stopped writing. Mm. So the poems from our first book, it spans that whole time.
Okay. Nice.
Cheryl, tell me about you.
I actually wrote the whole time. There wasn't a time that I wasn't writing. But there were other things going on in life that pushed this project together more fast than it probably would have happened. But I still think that God's timing is perfect timing, so that whether or not it took us that long to kind of come together, we always, since we were little kids, we wanted to write a book. We were saying that we were going to tell our family story, and that was always in the back of our minds to tell that story. So when we came together to put out the first book, which was different sides of the same coin, we were coming together because our patriarch, our father, was really, really sick. And I felt like I'm going to get moving on this and expedite it, because I didn't know how long he would still have. And it was his dream, and it was my dream to get our book of poetry out while he still had all of his faculties and could still enjoy it. So I'm just very grateful to God that we were able to do that.
Good story.
Now, you both were raised in Chicago, but you spent a lot of time in Mississippi with your grandparents and your other family members growing up. How did that shape your writing? I think both of you said that you wrote with your ancestors.
Right. Well, our story isn't really that unique, because we've all had Southern grandparents. I think for the most part, I think Raw is a lot different because of his background. Yeah. But if you're a big city dweller, usually your grandparents, their origins were in the South. But we pay homage to that because our parents were those kids that were truly children of the South. And they were young, having kids, having my sister and I, and families. And so that shaped us. There was that part, but then there's also the part of being young girls in the suburbs of Chicago, and in particular, like little Black boys in an urban setting. We're unseen for the most part, because Lyris and I were avid readers of history. We were avid readers of literature. And the thing is, when we were little girls reading, Judy Blume wasn't writing books for the audience of my sister and I.
Baby.
We were unseen girls in that way. And so we had to grow up a little bit, go off to college, where now we're not really under the thumb of mommy and daddy, and we can kind of go into the bookstores and buy books that caught our interest. And so as a freshman and as a senior in high school, where mommy and daddy were a little bit more loose, where they were a little bit more stern, now I'm able to drive. Now I have a car. Now I can go and get my little sister and we can hang out and we can go to bookstores ourselves and buy books that we want to read. And so Terry McMillan was very pivotal for me as a young woman, giving and writing stories about the African American woman's experience as a young adult and dating. And that was something that I hadn't seen before in the way that she was writing. So while Zora Neale Hurston and Maya Angelou were great for the first time in my life as a young woman, I was able to get something a little bit more edgy, and we loved it. And so whatever I was exposed to, I exposed my partner in crime to. And so Lyris was, she's my best friend. So whether or not she wanted to read it, she was going to experience what I was experiencing. And she just has always been that person.
Can I tell the story how it happened for real? Because Chyrel is so, she's so professional and everything. I'm going to tell it the way we did it. Chyrel was.
But before you tell your story, thanks for rubbing the salt in the wound, Chyrel, because I was that kid in Brooklyn, because a lot of my friends had grandparents in the South, like North Carolina, Texas, Georgia. So I was that, because, we're Black, but I'm Trinidadian by birth. So I was that kid that always wished, how come I don't have a grandparents in the South, right?
Oh,
well, I got y'all all. I was raised and lived in the South.
A lot of my friends would leave in the summer to go visit or for holidays. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. So sorry.
I was the opposite. I went to Detroit for the summer because I lived in Birmingham.
I used to go to Detroit because I had an aunt that lived in the park, so I used to go to Detroit for summers. But anyway, Lyris, tell your story. Go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in.
Well, see, the reason I love my sister is because she's always very professional. Always, has her Oprah Winfrey voice on. But what people don't see is the Chyrel that I see. So when Chyrel was a freshman in college, she came home and she said, Lyris, girl, I got this book for you. And I said, what? She said, girl, this book here, this is Terry McMillan. You got to read this book. This book is called Disappearing Acts. Girl, you got to read this book.
Yes. I'm sorry.
I said, okay. So we grew up in the suburbs and we had never read anything like Terry McMillan's Disappearing Acts. I mean, our brother, who is 8 years older than us, he would read us for bedtime stories. He would read us Edgar Allan Poe. So that's what we grew up on. So to get this book and to read Terry McMillan, I said, oh my God, it was like, this is Felicia, our older sister. I said, this is, I said, sure, this could be you. I said, we actually know people like this. And that was it. That was it. When I got into college, and I'll never forget, actually, the first time I heard, believe it or not, the first time I heard Nikki Giovanni, and I know everybody that is watching this can relate to this, especially if they're our age. The first time I heard Nikki Giovanni, it was on A Different World. And I heard Kimberly Reese do ego tripping. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? I said, oh my God. It was like I was having a religious experience. I was like, I had never heard anything like that. So I went to college, and both Chyrel and I, we went to college and we just devoured literature classes, Black literature classes. But it was those classes, those Black literature classes, Black women writers, that made me want to go back, and I could appreciate Edgar Allan Poe, Charles Dickens, Hemingway. But when I was in high school learning that stuff, I was like, I cannot relate to this mess. I did not like that mess. It irritated me. And the most thing that really irritated me was Shakespeare. And Chyrel and my older brother loved Shakespeare. And I was like, this mess is annoying. I don't get all that tis thee thou stuff. And it's really funny because years later, when I had my son, he was like, oh, mama, oh, I read Hamlet, and that is really good. And I was like, whose son are you? But he could tell me every little nuance and all these little things. And I was like, because they used to call my son Chyrel's son, because they look alike and they act so much alike. And everybody used to think he was Chyrel's son. And I was like, maybe he is, because Chyrel loved all that stuff. And but it was after I took all those Black history classes that I learned to love that stuff. And I went back and I read it, and I was like, I get it. Now I get it. But I had to see myself first.
Yeah. What time period was this when you guys were in school? The 90s or?
Yeah, the late 80s,
late 80s. 80. Well, Chyrel started school in 84. I started college in 85.
Because I'm a little bit older than you guys, because I graduated 1980 high school. So yeah, 1980.
You graduated when, Raw?
1980.
Wow, you're what, a year younger than I am? Hey, y'all, Raw trying to play like he's younger than everybody. I'm the youngest everybody on this screen, okay? I wish. Lyris, you're an awesome storyteller.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Chyrel always has that Kool-Aid smile.
She's all right.
Y'all make a great team.
She's all right. I think she needs to be a little bit more animated, personally. infuse a little bit more passion. Maybe do a few voiceovers kind of thing. But she's all right. She's all right.
I truly believe that she acts like Lyris says she does when she's off camera, and when she's on camera, like Lyris said, she's being Oprah Winfrey. Come on, Chyrel, you can let your hair down.
No, she's being Chyrel. There's already one Oprah. We don't need another one. I want the original Chyrel. That fine with me.
You among family, girl. You can let your hair down today.
You be professional. Be professional with us, and then save the soul food for your people, right? Maybe you let a little bit slip in here and there sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Throw a little black eyed peas in. Yeah,
see, people don't get the black eyed peas and cornbread. I get that.
Well, obviously it fuels your ability to tell stories. So well, you both got your strengths, right? So which
yes,
is
indeed.
really cool. What was the outside of being introduced to obviously to Black authors and particularly Black women, what else? Let's say what else? Yeah, what else did you get from your time in university? What else? How else did it shape you, I should say?
Well, being in the greatest metropolis that ever was, which is Chicago, especially in the summer, and you have Navy Pier and you are walking the Magnificent Mile. You're just in Grant Park, and you're in Soldier Field or you're wherever. It just the city experience really, really, we just loved it so much because little suburban girls, where your parents are dropping you off or your parents are driving you everywhere. It's a different experience than when you are a freshman and a sophomore in college, and now you're taking public transportation and you're learning the city and you're learning all of these places that you were kind of kept away from growing up. It makes you blossom because now you have so much more that you're taking in.
Where'd you guys go to school?
Our high school was Hillcrest High School, which was a suburban high school.
Right.
So that's where we went to high school, and then
Prairie Hills. Guys got to understand that growing up, our dad, he was overly protective. So we weren't allowed to be in the city only on Sundays. And that was to go to our grandmother's house. And then she was so overly protective that she would only let us out on the front porch.
Right.
So everything when we were growing up, before we started college, the only thing we knew about the city is what we heard. And we used to think that the city was so far away from us. It was so far away. And then when our dad kind of, loosened the reins, and it was so bad that when we started going to college, he actually put us on the bus, rode with us, and showed us how to pull the cord down and let them know we wanted to get off. He had to show us that because we had no idea. And so when we finally got a little taste of freedom, it was like Chicago became a whole nother character. Yeah, it became like this whole thing that suddenly came to life to us. And we were like, Chyrel, this is we live here. This is, and then we got to actually experience being around other Black people. Because keep in mind, growing up, our friends were white. Our first boyfriends were white. That's what it was. And so when we finally got around Black people, we lost our mind. It was like Chicago became a living, breathing thing to us. Yeah. And we ran to it. It's like a lot of people, when they get in college, they go off to other places. But our whole thing is we wanted to come and see Chicago. So when we got grown and we finally moved out, where did we go? We moved to the city. Because it was like, now we get to live here.
Yeah, you want to be in the vibe of it, right?
Right. It was amazing. It was amazing because, you saw literature right like before your eyes. People were doing poems in the streets, or they were street dancing or rapping, or it was just this whole thing that we had never experienced before.
It was just an explosion of the arts. And we were able to really, really not only just fall in love with it, but we were just so up close and personal, and it just reinforced and reintroduced us to what we loved, which was Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni and Sonia Sanchez, and just all of these other tremendous talents.
Maya Angelou has Trini roots, right?
I did.
I just had to throw that in. So
I absolutely knew that.
I'm glad you guys moved from the South and grew up in the North, because I didn't leave the South until I was like 35. And the South is not the things that you all experienced at a young age. I didn't experience until I moved up here at 35. I looked just like somebody just jumped off the boat. I was just, life was just new. So I'm glad you guys grew up. You didn't grow up in the South because it
And
wasn't what you thought. And I'm glad I moved my kids. My kids came up here when they was in second and third grade. So they had the opportunity to really, they have the morals of the South, but they still understand what the city life is like, and they understand the culture and stuff. Because we didn't, like you all didn't get to see the city. We didn't have nothing in the city. So yeah, I'm glad that you guys did that.
but now it is a reverse too, because you have to remember now we're northern girls.
Mhm.
So when you are in the South as a northern girl, that's
Say
a
it.
whole different set of rules. And that's
Yep.
a whole different lifestyle, because we're seeing on the town square with, grandmother and granddad Confederate flags that we're
Mm.
like, okay, in
What in the world?
Chicago, that's not going to fly. But,
Mhm.
then your parents and your grandparents are saying, look, girl, this is how you have to behave here
Right.
in the South. You kind of have to quiet it down and not be as rambunctious.
Mm.
And certain ideas that you have that aren't wrong ideas, you kind of have to dial that back when you're in this space. So it was very different. Even now as a grown woman, seeing, when I first moved back to the South, seeing the Confederate flags in
Mhm.
the courthouse and in the town square. I mean, I just felt like, okay, we need to be protesting in the streets all the time, because it's like, what is wrong with these people? They're so docile and everything is okay. But that's the way of life for them. And I can't come into their way of life and be disrespectful. So it just is, you're watching and walking a fine line all the time, because you
Yeah, and
don't want to.
it's nothing like experiencing that for the first time and having it hit in your face because
Mhm,
like our parents were from the South, so we grew up hearing about all that stuff. I mean, our
mhm,
parents talked about picking cotton on the plantations. My mama talking about those cotton sacks that she had to carry, and how it was bending over on her knees. She talked about that stuff. They talked about Mr. Charlie, and they talked about Mr. Calhoun's plantation. We know that stuff because they talked about it. It was a part of our life. You
mhm,
know, um, like that's why we love the blues so much because my dad is an eminent blues man.
mhm.
I know blues people. I'm at work and I'm singing the blues and people are like, you don't know nothing about that. I'm like, if I don't know nothing about it, don't nobody know about it. because my dad,
Mhm.
when he died, that's who do you think got his blues collection? Me.
Well, that's a whole other topic, because we definitely are our parents' children, and the
Yes.
way they were able to get through life and cope, and their coping mechanisms that
It's
worked for
amazing to
them
me.
was music. And all of our books tie that in. That is the one through line that connects every single book that we have written, is the backdrop of music from my mom, from my dad. My mom was Negro spirituals, and the first book is aligned with Negro spiritual. And then the second book, like my sister was saying, speaking about my dad's love of the blues, that is how they just got through life with music, and being able to kind of use that as a foil of therapy for them, of whatever they were going through, whether it was racism or, and my dad in the South, Jim Crow, whatever, they were able to connect and get through different things and different phases of their life through music. And we are, as adults, we go back to that music and we still listen to it. And I find myself actually relying on it to, when I'm writing, I'm in a writing zone. I listen to Negro spirituals, or I listen to gospel, or I listen to blues and jazz. And those are the things that really get my creative juices flowing. So I very much rely on those myself to kind of enhance what I'm writing about.
I grew up by growing up in Birmingham, so I know what the dirty South is. But the thing that helped me not see so much is because we lived on the outskirts. We didn't live directly in the city. But yeah, it was a learning curve it was a learning curve, especially when you realize when you're older that you understand that 16th Street bombing and one of your playmates got killed in the 16th Street bombing. And yeah, it's a learning curve. Not a good one, but it's a learning curve. And my dad was a jazz man. He liked blues too, but he loved the jazz, and that's what I grew up on, was the jazz. Chyrel, you are a 2025 poet laureate. Pronounce it. I didn't pronounce it right.
Laureate.
Laureate.
Okay, I did. That's pronounced it right. Of the Garden of Neuro Institute, which is a global women's writing group. Now, for those in the audience that don't quite know what a laureate is and what it does, will you tell us about your journey getting there and what it entails?
It was really, I was so shocked because I had no idea that I was gonna be whatever. You just kind of live your life and you're putting in the work. And so when you get certain appointments like poet laureate, you never live your life. When I was telling you the story about Lyris and I wanting to be writers and writing our books, poet laureate was never in the radar at all, but it did happen. And so what a poet laureate does is specifically, you are acknowledged for all of your writing that has come, that people have come across, whether it be like through books or through publications. And so Lyris and I are very blessed in that we have different connections of having written through the years, and people actually respect and like your writing. And so you become international because of the relationships that you have. And then you are partnering with other global writers who are not only, they have magazines. Some of them have magazines. Some of them have different anthologies that they make available, where if you want to partner with them and be a contributing writer. And so then your writing is not just on a local level anymore. It becomes more international and global. And so the more people that are exposed to your writing and the more people that you have kind of partnered with, in this case, that is kind of how I got the whole appointment of the poet laureate title. It was told to me that they wanted to sort of have me do this position years earlier, but because my mother-in-law was sick and my dad was ill, and I had so many different things colliding in life at that time, I wasn't really able to focus on doing one central thing of like being a poet laureate. So I wasn't able to do it then, but the timing now was right. And so that kind of allowed me to be able to just kind of focus on this one thing, as opposed to just kind of partnering and being global with other writers and being a contributing writer. Now I can just kind of put all of my focus in one area. So it was one thing to do 3 books with my sister. That is a joy for me because we love each other so much and respect each other as writers so much. But this is a little different because now I'm not just relying on just a relationship of a sibling that I was in the bathtub with. Now I'm being exposed to so many more different writers and different circumstances and how they live and how they see poetry and what they think poetry is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just my definition or my sister's definition, but it's their living experiences and their feelings and their thoughts of what it is. So to kind of curate that in this group of women, that's a lot different because it's just me and her. It's been me and her for so long, and it's been she and I for now 3 books. So that's like totally just a different experience. Because right now,
sounds very similar to you leaving suburbia and moving to Chicago.
Exactly, it is. That's how it feels. It feels just like that.
Mm-hmm.
It feels just like that. So I hope I answered your
You
question.
did. The 2 of you should always cherish the relationship of having a sister because I've never had that. I do have a sister, but we've never had that sister relationship. So I tell everybody that has a sister and they're close to them, cherish that because there are people like me who wish they had it.
I just adore my sister because she's the one person that is always going to tell me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. She gives it to me raw and uncut. And it hurt me so much because I heard her say one day, well, I don't speak like you, and I'm not as eloquent as you, and I'm not as polished as you. And she says, and I'm just this Southern country girl. And I told her, she said, and I hate my voice. I won't watch myself when we do interviews or listen to myself on the interviews because I just don't like my voice so much. And that really, really, that just made me tear up. I said, how can you say that? I said, that is insane. I said, don't you realize that that voice is the voice of love and comfort? And that's the voice when I'm in trouble and when I need encouraging and when I need a hug, I call her. And that's the voice that I was in the bathtub with and we were in the room as kids growing up with. And so for her to say that, it just made me feel bad because I don't hear what she is thinking that I'm hearing, which is weird.
It's funny because Chyrel has always said she's who I want to be when I grow up, and I've always said that she has always been my Wonder Woman because when we were growing up, I was the kid that was bullied. Okay, I've always been a healthy girl, and growing up in the 80s and the 90s, that wasn't what people didn't like big girls back then. But my sister, she and my older brother, they always made me feel like I was something special. And Chyrel, you guys just don't know. Chyrel has always been Wonder Woman. This girl she played softball, she played volleyball, she played basketball, she played tennis, and she was good at it all. And I would try out for this stuff and never make it because I was not an athlete. And she would get on these teams and she would give me her letter. The letter that they give you. She'd give it to me. Yep. And then after she would do all of that, she turned around and she was homecoming queen. She had a modeling contract. And I'm like, this girl did it all. And she was always the same. She never changed. And this is the same girl that when I was being bullied, I always had a big mouth because I knew I had Wonder Woman that was going to swoop in and save the day. I would always tell people, I will, you talking to me? I was never afraid to say what I wanted to say because I knew that Chyrel was going to come in and save the day. They would actually ask Chyrel, can I hit her just one time? Just let me hit her once. And Chyrel would say, I can't let you do that.
You sound like my brothers, man. Sound like my brothers, because they knew their big brother, regardless of what they've done, has got their back.
Yeah, that was Chyrel. That was Chyrel. And the thing was about Chyrel is, like I said, I've always been the mouth. So I'd be running around talking about, I'll do this, that, and woo, girl, I live with you. And Chyrel would say nothing. She just sit there. Next thing you know, Cheryl's fist is in your face. She would never say anything. And once her fist made contact, she was not going to lose that fight. I've seen this girl beat up gangster disciples, and I'm not lying. I've seen her beat him up. And the thing is, you never get that from what you're seeing today, right? You never get that. But she was everything to me, everything. And then she made straight A's. She did all of those sports, and she was a straight A student. She just, she was just everything that I wanted to be. She was always my hero.
You guys sound
I never needed.
You guys sound like the Sharp brothers. I don't know if you know Sterling and Shannon Sharp, football players.
Mm-hmm.
How many brothers have played in the NFL? And now the Sharp brothers are the first two brothers to make it to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
And Shannon Sharp just got the word a couple of days ago that he's going in. They're waiting for years. Anyway, the point is, Sterling will always tell you, I've always been following him.
Right.
And what he did was more impressive than what I did, because he didn't have a playbook. He didn't have Google. He didn't have this or whatever. He had to learn as he went. So, foundation was set from him. So your stories sound very similar to theirs, because, when I listen to you, Lyris, the admiration you have for your sister and what she's done kind of set that template for you. But then when you listen to your sister talk about you, it's the reverse, right? So yeah, it's admirable to hear. I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Artemis, she said, and I knew she was going to say this. She said that, see, you guys, and she and her sister, y'all mirror. And her sister was the youngest of all of us. And we lost her sister. And she was always her big sister. You better not look at her hard. If she didn't like the way you look at her, you were dead. So she's in tears, and I knew she would be. When I saw her chat pop up, I knew what she was gonna say, because I was just sitting here listening, and I was really thinking about, look, don't ever, ever, ever underestimate what you guys have. Because people like me that wish they had it. Artemis and I have always been close, but it makes it closer now because both of us need that sister. So
there's nothing in them that says that they take it for granted. If anything, they're grateful for it, they appreciate it, and they continue to develop it and cultivate it. So.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's different, from being kids. It's unfortunate because I have two brothers and we're not very close. But I do have a sister that she's probably the only person on this planet that truly knows who I am. Right.
I don't see a separation from myself where I begin and where Lyris begins. We are the same.
Like
we
twins.
are continuations of each other. She can finish my sentences. I can finish her sentences. And I promote her. I always read her poems on any platform, because when people ask me who my favorite writer is, Raul knows this. I've said it to him. I've said it to you, Angie. She really is my favorite writer. So that's who I read, so I don't feel like I need to defer to Maya Angelou all the time, because I feel like God gave me one.
Yeah.
And so I feel like she is that good.
The only thing
And
that separates you guys is that you weren't born at the same time. You weren't twins.
Exactly.
Physically, I mean, physically. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you're twins in every other meaning.
Exactly.
Whether you're twin flames, kindred spirit, whatever you want to call it, you're that.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted, before we move on, just to thank Doc and Lynette for joining us. We're in conversation with Chyrel and Lyris, the two sisters, amazing poets. So just wanted to acknowledge you guys. Thank you for being here. So
let me make a
Thank you,
correction.
Doc and Lynette, for coming.
We're showcasing the supernovas. They're not just sisters; they're supernovas. So we must make sure everybody understand we got supernovas here.
Thank you.
I think that is, when I read that, I thought that was so cool. That was just like the coolest thing to read, about a person saying that a female was a supernova. That was awesome. Lyris,
Yes.
you are an acclaimed Mark Twain Masterclass Black dialect writer. Now you know what my next question is. Tell us about that. Tell us how you got there, what it is, what you do. Just tell us everything.
Well, I've always been fascinated with the way we speak, and where it came from, how it developed. And like I said, both Chyrel and I said, our parents are from the South, and my mother is very Southern. And that always fascinated me. And I remember, again, I have to go back to college, because it's like before college, you really don't know yourself. But when you're in college, you are learning who you are. So when I was in college, I read Burr Rabbit. And most people think, oh, what are they saying? Oh. I read that book and I was so fascinated. I just fell in love with that. I was like, wow, I hear that. I hear that. And then, how people criticize Black dialect. They call it Ebonics, and they have all these lovely little names for the way we speak. But it is born out of our experience. The fact that we were not taught English, we had to pick it up. So, I remember sitting in class in college, and we were reading aloud, and one of the girls was reading a passage, and the word was ask. And she said, X. And something said, Lyris, just look around. And I looked around, and all of the white kids were like, did she say X? Are they going to hack us up? They had all these little jokes, about her saying X. And I was like, okay, to our ancestors, that's what it sounded like they were saying. They didn't hear ask, they heard X. Because they're, living in the South, and the people that they are learning from are, not linguistics, so they're speaking to them. They're saying, what they're hearing. And that just always fascinated me. So when I write, I try to honor those, our ancestors, our Southern ancestors, those who had to literally teach themselves a language they never heard of. We came over here not knowing this language. And because we did not know the English language, instead of them saying, oh, well, they just don't know this language, we were called dumb. When we weren't dumb, we spoke our own language. So that was just always fascinating to me. And I always try to honor that language because I have so much respect for it.
You were talking about the Southern dialect. I was thinking about, I'll ask Chyrel, did I pronounce your name right? Because when I was thinking, I'm like, man, this Alabama thick tongue is not going to make it sound right. That's why, Chyrel, I asked you, did I pronounce the word laureate correct? Because I know I have a Alabama Southern accent. And when I would go to Detroit, just like she said, X, yep. And it was, can I have a fork? Can I ride your bicycle? And they always made fun of me because I said a nickel, a dime. So yeah, I understand that totally. And when I worked in the corporate world, I had to take speech class. I was not allowed to, my voice had to be generic, where you couldn't tell what race I was, where I was from. So I get it.
Yeah, that we all role play, you know, we all go back and forth like that because you're not gonna deal with the, you know, being around your people the way you are around other people because you get that, you get the looks between them trying to pretend like they don't understand what you're saying, when some of the worst, to me, the worst speaking English speaking people are Southern white people. You get them where they say they're fixing to do something, but you let us say we're fixing to do something. They're like, what? What are you going to, what? Instead of us saying we're going to do something, you know, then it's so wrong when we say it. But when a Southern white person says they're fixing to do something, oh, their Southern accent is just so charming. But it's not charming for us. So, you know, I respect the language and I honor it. And that's why I write in it, because I think it's something that should be honored.
Well, to me, this would be the perfect time for you to read a poem in Black dialect so that Angie and Raul and the rest of our guests can actually hear what that sounds like.
Okay.
Yes, that works greatly.
Okay. This poem is called Felicia's Blues. And this is a poem that I wrote for my oldest sister. Don't know why, old man, trouble been sitting in my living room. Been sitting in my living room, causing my light not to shine. I've been singing the blues 2 times. Shown enough odd on a woman. Been asking the questions, been waiting on the answers. Ain't nobody talking, so I just keep on listening. Heard that rainbows don't shine on cloudy days. Days so long, nights so short, days done turn into nights. Today's become yesterdays, and I'm still sitting here singing tomorrow's blues. Billy say, God bless the child that's got his own. I say, God bless the child to get his own. Ain't no easy streets mark life, only unpaved roads leading to possibilities, leaving trails of what was.
Lyris, I want to tell you, thank you for making me feel better about the Southern accent. The funny part is, I was always told, you're never supposed to write like that. You're never supposed to talk like that. So I spent all of my time trying to write and speak correct English. You know what? I ain't doing that no more. I'm sorry, I'm done.
It's ridiculous because Mark Twain wrote books, his whole catalog.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote it in Southern Black dialect.
Mm-hmm.
And was an award-winning writer and author. It's only an issue when you're not Mark Twain to do it. That's when it becomes an issue. I remember I reposted that poem, and I had Black people DMing me, direct messaging me, and telling me how inappropriate it was because of the speech pattern. And I was shocked. I was just floored because I couldn't believe. I said, okay, now when you read Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, was it inappropriate then? And the answer is no, it wasn't. So why is it inappropriate for a Black person that's paying homage to their mother and father and grandparents that spoke like that? And that's what we grew up hearing. So why is that inappropriate for us to pay homage and tribute in our writing? Why is that unacceptable?
I wrote a poem. I've only read one poem in Southern Black dialect, and it was a grandmother's prayer. But when I read it, my grandmother looked at me and went, "I don't talk like that. That made me sound like something wrong with me." And I told her, I said, "I didn't mean it like that." So I didn't write like that anymore. Although there are a lot of times when I'm writing, I can hear it in that dialect, but I never write it in that dialect because I felt like I offended her when I did it. So she's dead. Daddy dead. My mama don't care. She just long as I write. So hey, Lyris, I'm gonna write in my own words right from now on.
There you go.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
You also are a pushcart nominee.
Yes.
That's correct? Tell us
Yes.
about that.
Well, I really didn't know anything about that until Lisa, was it Lisa Chyrel that told me? Lisa told me. And because this whole literary thing is new to me, and my sister is more involved than I am because at this time in her life, she has more time to be involved in it. So I didn't really know anything about that. And so I was really surprised when I got nominated. So I just thank Lisa.
That's an acknowledgement from a small press of a poem or writings that you have done that garnered a lot of attention, and then they are then nominated for an award. And so that was her first literary nomination for a piece, which was called Brianna.
Justice for Brianna.
Justice for Brianna.
Was that Breonna Taylor?
Yes.
Yes. That's the point.
Yeah, I wrote a poem that was No Justice, No Peace. And in it at the end, I was asking when justice was going to become justice and not just us. Or my son-in-law was killed by police, like Brownies. And when I saw that you had written a poem for her, I was like, wow, great minds do think alike. And I thought that was really cool. And by the way, my daughter Amber put in the chat that I was always correcting them to speak correct English. So I guess now she feels like she can just speak like she wants to. Let me see. Then it says, I saw where it said, cue the spotlights and warm up the band. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Sisters Roc N Rhyme presents Poems in the Key of Life. Is the accurate description on your book cover. When I read that, that is an accurate description. Now tell me, what inspired the two of you to combine 80s, 90s music to create what you all call a poetic dance party?
Okay, our first two books were books written in different points and parts of our lives. we were adults and growing up, and kind of a look back through our young adulthood, our look back as being adult Black women. And so we remembered we wanted to just kind of take a step back and really, really do something fun and something that that brought us a lot of joy. And there's nothing like an 80s and a 90s dance track or music from that time period when we were coming of age and we were getting our first apartments and we were getting out on our own and we had our first jobs and we had our first everything after the college experience and coming out. And so we wanted to just go back and kind of take a look back at a time that was really, really joyful. And that's what we came up with. And that's why the two girls on the cover look like younger versions of ourselves, because that is what we looked like at that time. And so we wanted to just do a younger book and just kind of have it be somewhat light, but not all of the topics are light like that, because we deal with women's issues and we deal with some political issues. And so while the music that we loved, you know, we loved a lot of, we're eclectic. We love Bruce Springsteen. We love Michael Jackson. We love the Eagles. We love Foreigner. We love the Rolling Stones. We love the music. That's the soundtrack of our lives. And so that's why we did this tribute in poetry to that time. And we just wanted to just keep it light and just have fun. And that's what we were able to do with this book. And that's why we like it so much.
I bet you guys really
like
would have had fun with the 70s.
You guys like the Eagles?
Yeah,
we
yeah.
love the Eagles.
Our dad loved the Eagles.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw them when I was in California. I lived in Cali, and then I saw them in '84. I think it was when they came back, when they toured again, when they got back together, something like that.
Yeah, we're big Kansas and Eagle fans, and any kind of, you know, especially Chicago and Styx and that kind of.
Yeah, we have a lot in common.
About the boys, Chyrel. Duran. Hello.
Duran.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you throw that in with Earth, Wind, and Fire and Parliament,
yes, indeed,
and Funkadelic and the Crusaders. Yeah, it was well rounded. Yeah, we have very similar tastes in music.
Yeah.
Will the two of you pick your favorite poems from Poetry in the Key of Life and let us rock and rhyme with you?
Lyris, you go first.
No, Chyrel, I already read one.
Goodness. All right. Gotta find this poem now. Okay, I'm here, so I'm just gonna read this one because I don't feel like flipping through this book trying to find it. This one is called Vagabond Blues. Living like a daughter of Cain, disinherited without promise, remembering the land of milk and honey, but can't sing my ancestors' song, the song of Moses. I sit a stranger cast off in a strange land, longing to return to our hallowed promised land. Can't escape the speckled bird heritage worn upon my back, disowned on my own, living like a castaway, hurting now, a wretched vagabond, left for a prey, a sign and a wonder. There's no escaping that. The curses poured out upon me, living life in complete lack. Afflicted, the Job of my generation, fury poured out, longing for home, scattered, waiting complete restoration. Living as a captive, least among the nations.
All right. All right. Love that. Okay, should I just go or okay?
Yeah, I mean, hey, the floor is yours. Whichever one, if you want to read two, Cheryl, however many you want to read, the floor is yours.
So you want to go again?
Okay, I gotta find a one to read here.
Okay. You find yours while I read mine.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, we'll just go back and forth. Okay, this one, since we are honoring Black history, got my Black history shirt on and my drum. I'm going to do a poem about Black history. It's called Call Us by Our Name. We are not slave. We are not colored. We are not Negro. We are not Afro-American, Black, or African-American. We are the nation that was scattered and peeled. We are the people whom Jesus dealt with face to face in the wilderness. We are they who were given good laws and statutes, who said all that the Lord says we will do. We are the flock of the slaughtered. We are the ones who disobeyed after he told us to choose life and live. We were given the choice of good and evil, life and death. And because we chose death and evil, we were bought and sold, shipped as human cargo in the bottom of ships to other nations who have become rich off of our labor, our knowledge, and our talent. We are the ones who make America great. We caused England to flourish. We are the captives. But we will return to the land of milk and honey, for our God is not done with us yet. His arms are still outstretched. His mercy endureth forever. We are lost, yet we are found. We are blind, but some of us do see. For we are the Lord's chosen from the very foundation of the world. Though we are covered in sackcloth and ashes, he will dress us in fine white linen. He will put rings on our fingers and pearls around our necks. We are the bride leaning upon our beloved. From Genesis to Revelations, he speaks of us. We are the hidden ones. But the Most High said he knows them that say they are and are not, but do lie. He called them by their name, Idumea. And the whole world would have to call us by ours. For we are his firstborn. Israel is our name. So call us by our name.
We're going to have a side conversation about Deuteronomy 28.
Okay.
I'd love to have that conversation with you. Because are we living God's will then? Are we living God's plan because we're the lost tribe wandering because we went against God's decree, right?
But we know we're not, because we are living the other side of those curses. Instead of the blessings, we chose the curses.
We chose
so
the
we know
cursing,
we're not living God's plan.
So we have to make another choice before we're back in God's favor. That's why I said we'll have to talk, definitely. I like that piece. I like that piece.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Okay, I'm gonna read Evolution of the Blues. I am old dirt roads, I am soul. I am cotton gins in Mississippi cotton fields, the daughter of a sharecropper that sang plantation songs. Daddy partied with his old granddad whiskey in his hand all night long. You could find him in the juke joint, but he worked double hard, meaner than any old abandoned junkyard dog. I am Negro spirituals. I am Jim Crow. I am the origins of Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and Fats Domino. The heart and soul of good time music rightfully named rock and roll. I am cornbread and collard greens, fried chicken too. The daughter of a blues man who lived cheating in the next room. I witnessed the birth of honky tonk and ragtime. I am shouts and chants, lost Canaan ballads, howled upon the moon. The birth of soulful bluegrass. I am the evolution of the blues.
Oh, love it. I'm sorry. I love
both of those. And Artemis she's going, wow, wow. Yeah. I mean, it's not often you get poems that just take your breath away. It's like, okay, there's nothing you can say except wow. Those are some very powerful pieces. I really enjoyed both of them. And the names that you picked for those poems is very becoming. I enjoyed the names. Um,
Thank you.
you had let me see, y'all got what, about 20 books out?
No, thank you.
You have one called Mirror Images
Yes.
that tackles racism, among other things. Um, it's set with the blues musical backdrop. And this part, when I saw this on the back of the book, it sounded just like Chyrel talking. And it says it's designed to rip the bandages off, showing things we would be happier not seeing. Can either one of you all elaborate on what bandages we were ripping off? When I read that, it was just like, cool. That was a really great analogy. And Cheryl, did you write that?
I did write that,
I
but
sounded just like you.
I absolutely, I'm guilty. I did write that. We usually collaborate, but I kind of just did that one. Um, book two was another sad book, because we had just lost our patriarch. We were burying him, and he had died of prostate cancer that spread to his bones. So there was a lot of, and COVID was running rampant, and we were under lockdown, and we were just stuck and confined in the house. And we were trying to care for my dad who was dying. And the news was just every day showing the body counts of lost life. And the social injustices kind of were colliding at that time. We had George Floyd, who had just been, killed with cameras rolled for 9 minutes. We didn't find out later. It was like 8 minutes and 42 seconds or something, but we found out later on that no, it was really 9 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that, 9.5 minutes, where a police officer had his knee on his neck and was suffocating him. So we're stuck in the house. COVID is, the body counts are going up, and we now have social injustice kind of colliding with that backdrop of lots of young men and women being killed by police. And we were burying our father in the middle of COVID. And it was a horrible time. And we were trying to plan his funeral. And then we were feuding with our family members that we had loved our whole entire lives. You really see the worst of people in times of loss. And so we were writing about that experience. We were writing about the experience of the police unaliving, executing, the citizenry. We were writing about all of that stuff in mirrored images. And so we used my dad, because we lost him. So we kind of used blues as a way of telling that story with our second book.
I have a question for either one of you. When you all are writing, Artemis can do it too. And you writing about something that has happened that's painful. How do you do that? Is it cleansing to do that?
Well, actually, before we put out our third book, we were going to finally write our story, how we grew up. But as we were writing it, it became so painful that we had to stop. We stopped writing it, and that's when we came up with the second, I'm sorry, our third book. So sometimes it's very cleansing, and you're able to get it out, and other times it's not. I always tell the story that Chyrel and I had very different fathers, even though he was the same. We had different relationships with our dad. Chyrel was my dad's favorite. He made a point out of letting us know that. Even though I was the youngest, when people would say, "Oh, is she the baby? Oh man, she looked just like you." His answer was, "She's not the baby. She's the youngest child." And growing up, I never could really get that. I always felt, I felt what he meant by that. But it wasn't until I got old, and I say old because I'm 57, but it wasn't until I was like 53, 54, when I realized the last time he said it, I said, I get it. Because when they would ask my mom if I was the baby, she would say yes. But see, when baby entails how you feel about your child, no matter how, because I have one son, one child, and I don't care if that boy is 67 years old, he gonna always be my baby. But from the time I could understand what my father was saying, I can remember him saying, when I was 3 years old, I can remember him saying, "No, she's not the baby. She is the youngest child." Now, if you're not a baby at 3, you're never gonna be one. So then I said, you know what? There's a sentiment in behind that Daddy never felt for me. I always felt like he resented me because I was the youngest. So there was always some resentment there. So I remember when we were writing our second book, when our dad was going through all of this, and he was dying, and I was in the home taking care of him. I remember Chyrel saying, we have to write a poem for our dad. And I really dreaded writing that poem because I knew that my relationship with Daddy was different from hers. And I tried to tell her that. I said, Chyrel, I can't write the poem that you're going to write. I said, you may not want me to write the poem. You may not want me to write a poem about Daddy. But then even in all of that, I learned to appreciate what, I had. There were some things that I really admired about my father, but for the most part, me and my dad, we bumped heads from day one. From the day I was brought home, me and my dad bumped heads. But I still learned to respect how he brought us up, the things that he had to overcome. I had to understand that my dad was just a man. I had to come to that realization early, where something, a lot of kids, when they grow up with their dad is Superman and he can do no wrong. My dad was, I always felt like my dad was Superman, but he was flawed. Mm-hmm. He was a flawed Superman. And I had to come to that realization early. And so that's one of the, that writing that poem was painful to me, but I couldn't get up there and say what a great, a wonderful man, Daddy was, because I didn't have that kind of relationship with my dad. But it wasn't until we got to the third book where I had a little bit more understanding, and I could really come outside of myself and say, you know what? I respect him for this. So I have a poem about my dad that I read all the time, and I think it's a great, it's a great homage to him, and I think he would be proud of that poem.
Mhm.
I asked that because I've heard a lot of poets able to write about instances that was painful,
Mm.
but for some reason I can't do that. That's the reason I asked how, if I made it through it, if God let me make it through it, I'm done, it's over. I'd have to write something cheerful. That's the reason I asked that. How did you do that?
Mm.
Um, if the poems are not too painful or hurtful for you,
Mm.
will you read some from Mirror Images, please? If
Oh,
but if you feel like they're hurtful or make you sad, it's okay.
the poem that I have in Mirrored Images for my dad. I don't really like that poem because there was a lot of hurt, and I hadn't really dealt with my relationship with my dad. But there is a poem in uh, Sisters Roc N Rhyme Presents Poems in the Key of Life. That poem is, I can read that poem if you like that poem.
Sure. I mean, that's what I was saying. If there are poems in that book that will make you sad, you don't have to read from that book.
No, I mean, not all the poems in that book are sad. Because like Chyrel was saying, how we we were just dealing with what was going on at the time. So all of the, whether it is political or whether it was reminiscing about how we grew up or whatever, it was just most of it really is what we were seeing coming across the TV since we were on lockdown, and that's all we had was the TV and the news. A lot of the poems deal with that.
Okay.
But like I said, it wasn't until my father unfortunately left that I was able to just think back on our relationship and what he must have was going through and how he was trying to overcome a lot of things, that I learned to appreciate him and the lessons that that he gave us. This is the poem. This is my poem about my dad, and I think you'll understand my dad and my relationship through this poem. This poem is called Daddy Said Give Him Hell. Daddy said give him hell. Never let anybody tell you that they are better than you. Their condition may be better than yours, but they will never be better than you. Don't take down from who you are. Stand up, back straight, and head held high. Look them in the eye and tell them who you are. Black is beautiful. Black is resilient. Black is strong. Black is you, and I made you, and you give them hell. I didn't bend over in those cotton fields, sell moonshine, walk around with holes in my shoes to get a degree so you can sit at the back of the bus. I begged, I stole, I borrowed, worked for Mr. Charlie, and I drove the CTA bus with a college degree in my pocket, only to be told we don't hire Blacks as architects. I kept putting my credentials on the table over and over, year after year, never taking no for an answer. I believed in myself and the talent that God gave me, and I always gave him hell. Don't let any man tell you who you are, not the white man, your man, or any woman. You tell them who you are. And if they don't listen, shout. If they still don't listen, then show them. You can show them better than you can tell them. I came from the cotton fields of Mississippi, Mr. Calhoun's plantation, to being the first Black architect ever hired by the Environmental Protection Agency. I can show you better than I can tell you. In all my life, I gave him hell. But I had to get to that point. I had to get there.
I love that poem. It was so sweet. And
Thank you.
you know what? That is the voice of a true Southern dad.
Yes.
You don't live in, if you've never lived in the South, then you wouldn't understand. But yes, that is the voice of a true Southern dad. I enjoyed that.
That was our father. That he said that to her every day of his life.
Every day of our lives, that's what he said. Before we went to school, he would say, give him hell.
And she did.
Every day.
That was
And I
really
tried.
good. Chyrel, do you have one you want to read?
So you may not have gotten what you wanted from your dad, but you got definitely what you needed.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
My dad was the same way. My dad had all three brothers nailed, and he turned out to be right. But when you're young, you don't understand it. I have a greater understanding of my father in death than when he was alive. We were estranged, but we also talked a lot. So I get it. Because
Artemis said,
a
cool
father's
beans.
love is more disciplinary than anything. And if you got a father that's really aware, he sees who his kids really are. He's not afraid to say. Doesn't come across always as nurturing. So
Artemis says, cool beans. That was so inspiring. She says, I'm a daddy's girl. I love it.
Okay.
Now, Chyrel's poem is totally different from mine. Chyrel, you read yours.
Which one?
You have so many.
Oh, because I was going in a totally different direction.
Okay.
You want me to read you one that I wrote for him? Is that what you're asking,
Yes.
Angie?
No, I'm asking you if no, I was talking about mirror images, and you said it was sad, and I was saying if there was something in there that was, if the book would make you sad, you know you didn't have to read anything out of it because I didn't want you to be sad.
Well, it's so much of him that's on every page of this book, but I'm just gonna read another poem. I actually read this to him before he passed away, but this one is called Leave Me Alone with My Blues. And I love this poem. Some days, all a person has is their blues. I'm talking the Albert King. I've been down since I began to crawl blues. The down home, play the other record or two. Collard greens with cornbread on the side blues. The kind where you just want to be left alone with your melancholy. Let me feel what I'm feeling. The pain of living black, struggle plantation blues. I've been up all night, ain't nothing going right. B.B. King and Lucille, I think you made your move too soon, blues. I'm in a ZZ Hill frame of mind. Just leave me alone with my down home blues. Let the somber and pensive bloom of my soul loop on constant repeat until its familiar cadence becomes stormy Monday blues, remembering Sylvester while listening to T-Bone Walker.
I like that. And you actually put the blues in your poem. That was very creative. I like that. Both of you all are so creative.
Have either of you written anything that revolves around Rosetta Tharpe? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
Rosetta Tharpe. Tharpe. Tharpe.
Have we written anything around her?
Do you know that name?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I was just wondering if she was part of your repertoire of music when you were growing up, since your father really loved blues, jazz, that sort of thing. So, because that listening to Cheryl's piece, she came to mind as I was hearing her, as you're listening to her words.
Well, primarily my dad had a a crazy blues collection. So I paying homage to him in tribute of him, all of the music that played in the backgrounds of our lives were the songs that I wrote about and put in this particular poem. But he definitely was a fan of hers. I just didn't list her in this particular poem.
No.
But I definitely.
Your words, though, I don't know, for whatever reason, made me think of her because, I mean, she was such an influence to Presley, to Chuck Berry, Little Richard. I mean, the list goes on and on. But yeah, for whatever reason, that piece made me think of her. So I felt her somehow. Yeah, it was a good piece. Good piece.
Yeah, I was, even though he was not able to see this particular book, to be able to read that to him at bedside, while he was yet living, it meant so much to me. So even though it's sad, it's kind of joyous too, to be able to just think about him and the music that he loved. So
that's very sweet.
I had to get there because, like I said, our relationship was totally different from the relationship he had. Sure. One of the first poems that I wrote about my father, and it is in mirrored images. It's called Hurricane.
Oh, I love that poem.
And that's that is how I felt about my dad. I felt like he was a hurricane. So if you like, I can read that book. I can read that poem.
Yes, please.
Okay. This poem is called Hurricane. I really don't know how I'm supposed to feel. However, what I do feel is disconnected and unsettled. I feel like my foundation has been cracked and set at naught. But how can I have ever felt connected to a foundation that was broken from the beginning? I'm confused. I am unsteady and bruised. I am like a tree blowing in a hurricane, rocking to and fro. And yes, you were always the hurricane. A violent wind tearing everything apart. And when I tried to steady myself, you would blow again. And I would be shaken to my marrow. Now your winds have been silenced. There is no more shaking. No more are my leaves blown here and there. The whirlwind has ceased, and I am left bent, not split in two or uprooted, just bent.
That was really special. No, even though you may not have had the relationship you thought you should have had, I cannot see your daddy being anything but proud of you, regardless of what he said.
Oh, he was very proud of her. He was very, very proud of my youngest sister.
Usually when your dads don't really tell you how they feel, it's because they really feel. And I didn't learn that until my dad got sick and my mom finally told me. He said, your dad always on you because he sees more in you than you see in yourself. He said, you his favorite. And I sat down and looked at my mom. I'm like, she done lost her mind. I can't be his favorite. But I finally understood why he was on me like that. That's the reason I told you. Usually when they're on you like that, or you get that feeling, you are their favorite, and he is proud of you. I couldn't see him being anything else but.
Thank you. No, everybody knew Chyrel was his favorite. It was four of us, but Chyrel was his favorite.
So I bet you Chyrel flashed that Kool-Aid smile and it was over. You all did one called Different Sides of the Same Coin. And it has a twist on it, spins a twist on the Harlem Renaissance. Um, and it all coincides with the 2018 social struggles. Which struggles were you all really referring to, or it was no particular one? And how did you put that twist on the Harlem Renaissance?
Um, Langston Hughes was a gentleman, and he said things in a very diplomatic way, which invited other nations of people to kind of see the injustices of what Black life was like at that time. And we do the same thing, but we're not as eloquent in hiding it the way that he did. Some of his writing was a little, I don't want to say coded, but it was very almost polite. We're saying things that is way less polite.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I meant by we're still dealing with some of the issues of the Black experience, but we're not genteel with it.
Right.
We come right out and say what it is. We're not, saying, like in his poem, I too am America.
Mm.
It was just very, it was very polite.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't demanding that people see him.
Right.
Our writings demand that we are seen. We're not requesting that.
Right.
We are more so demanding to be seen.
Right.
Being Black girls in the suburbs, not able to find books that represented us, that represented two Black girls in the suburbs. We weren't seen. And so that's why I initially started writing, because I was able to journal and say what really bugged me about my living experience that sometimes I wasn't allowed to say in general conversation. I could then write it. So a lot of the writings from our first book, Different Sides at the Same Point, did span back, like my sister said, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you aren't as verbal and vocal, you tend to write, and it's like a cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you're holding in, you're able to write it now, and then it just spills out on paper. And so that's more of what I meant by the Band-Aid. It's ripping off the Band-Aid, because you don't have to be. I don't have to be polite. I don't have to be as coded. And
that's the difference between that generation and our generation. I think that we don't have to be so polite about it. We want to know why. Why are you treating us like this? Whereas the black people in the older generation would never come out and say, what's your problem? What is your problem with me? Whereas we're more in your face about it. And there's a poem that I have in the first book called Why You Hate Me.
Oh, that's a beautiful poem.
Langston Hughes would never ask that, but he would write about the hate. He would describe the hate and how it made him feel. But I'm asking you, why you hate me?
And then you answer.
Yes, and then I answer why they hate me.
And see, that's the difference in being raised in the South and being raised in the North. Um, there's so many historical things that my family experienced in Alabama, things that I know about, but we were taught you do not say that out loud. You do not tell that. Um, the men that had something to do with that 16th Street bombing, they rolled up beside my grandmother and told her, "Gal, get out from down here because it's fixing to be bad." So when she told me that story when I got older, I'm like, "Well, did you tell anybody?" She said, "No, and you better not either. I swear you lying." She said, "You can't tell stuff like that."
Mm.
And you're right. You all could be in your face with it. And the era now can be in your face with it. But because I was born in the other era, in a lot of instances, and Wallace is smiling because he knows that sometimes it's hard to break what you were raised with.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And you can know that you need to stop doing that or you need to change that. But when you get 64, it's hard to break certain habits, even though you know you think he's so cute. You need to do it. Artemis
We
wrote.
just did a show on Booker T and WBE
Mm-hmm.
about
Uh-huh.
one talked about the philosophy of we can and the other we
Mm-hmm.
can't. I mean, so I hear what you're saying, but I don't fully agree with that because we've been demanding for a very long time. I mean, WBE was all about demanding and in your face, and that fueled the civil rights. Civil rights was not nonviolent; it was very much in your face. Black
Well, a lot
Panther
of it
was
wasn't. A lot
very
of it
much.
wasn't. It took, okay, one of my favorite protests from the civil rights movement is the Montgomery Ward sit-ins. It took a lot of discipline to sit there and let someone get in your face and call you the N-word, spit in your face, and do these things to you, and you absolutely could not react. Whereas, how do you think that would go over today? I don't think that would go over well.
The same thing. I mean, we had Black Lives Matter did the same thing. I mean, the sit-ins. I personally, I think a lot of people misunderstood that because they actually wanted that confrontation. That's why I said the civil rights was not as nonviolent as people think, right? And we've seen it play out the same playbook today with Black Lives Matter. So we've been doing that for a very long time, demanding.
Yeah, I guess like Chyrel was saying, and as far as poetry and expressing that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
it was always done sort of like in a polite kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way
Mm-hmm.
Langston Hughes describes, he has a poem called the Washerwoman, and he is talking about how, the Black woman gets up day after day and she's doing other people's laundry, she's on her knees and she's scrubbing people's clothes that don't belong to her, and how she felt. It's for you to say, it was more like we were asking, is it okay for us to feel this way? Whereas today, we don't ask, is it okay? We're saying, we feel this way. You made us feel this way. And now we want you to know, we want you to know it. That's the difference. So the poem, Why You Hate Me, is like, it's what I would, it's like me confronting the oppressor and asking him, and then I'm telling him why he hates me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me really asking you, I'm telling you why you hate me. It's like I'm not leaving it up to you to tell me, because I already know.
for example, in our first book, what Lyris is saying, and I have others that I probably should have done from mirrored images, since that's where you wanted me to read from. But this is an example of that. My whole life, I've watched Black people hold hands and sing, "We Shall Overcome." And we are the generation that says, hold up, we are tired of singing, "We Shall Overcome." And so this poem was born from that sentiment. It's called "Black Folks Tired of Singing, We Shall Overcome." White privilege gives you cover. Your blues ain't nothing like mine.
See.
Police don't kill white folks, mostly killing mine. No justice, no peace. Police brutality. 404 years of Black lives in peril spawn Black hostility. 100 years of singing, "God bless America, let freedom ring," while the world stands by in silence, watching Black suffering. You cannot know the rage I carry that's buried deep inside. Protesting since Martin Luther King, living separate and unequal, bloody Black lives. So that's one of those poems where I say, you just rip the bandage off, because at this point, singing "We Shall Overcome" since Martin Luther King, to only be in a place where we're revisiting everything that he wrote about, we're still living it and still writing about it.
Say that, Chyrel.
I no longer want to do this hand-holding kumbaya. No, notice our suffering. I'm saying we're hurting and we're tired of singing "We Shall Overcome." That's what I'm saying.
I like that analogy. That's really, I like that. Like I said, you spend a lot of time in the South, and there's not a whole lot of difference between Alabama and Mississippi. What is it? Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, the dirty
And
South.
Arkansas as well.
Yeah, and see, the kids sing about the dirty South, and they don't even know anything about the dirty South. They don't even know what that is. So, yeah,
we know what it is. Yeah,
yeah, we do. Artemis wrote, she says, "Ladies, thank you both for sharing your stories." She said, "I was drawn in and blessed. My father favored me, but he raised me to protect my sister, who was the mirror image of his love, who was my mother. She said her grandson had just joined her. And when he saw you, Lyris, the first thing he said was, 'She looks like TT. Her sister will wear her hair just like yours.'"
Thank you.
Just like yours.
Thank you.
You guys are just so full of joy. You're very full of joy and encouragement. You got two books that I thought was so cool. One is Genesis Describe, a portrait journal, and the other one is Poetry and Prose. It's a portrait journal. What made you guys do a portrait journal? That was really cool.
We journaled our whole lives, and the young kids and the younger generation, everybody is, "Oh, manifestation, blah, blah, blah." Well, we live manifestation. We wrote our poems and put them in journals, and both of our books, the first book as well as the second book, were born from the journals that we wrote in. And so these are all written words that were poems that we put in our journals. So manifestation is one thing, but the finished product of two books, that's an entirely different thing. So because we were able to do that, we thought maybe if other writers had the tool and the ability to be able to journal, who knows what might turn up
Right.
from their experience of journal. And so we wanted to just make that something that other people had the same access to be able to do that we did. Because we, writers aren't, they don't just happen, they're kind of created. They're born through experience, life experience, just the things that you discover and encounter in your life, and through the words that you chronicle and write down. And so that's our story. And so that's why we made journals available to people so that they could tap into whatever they might want to write about.
That's awesome, because I tell everybody, when you're going through, just write it down. When you write it down, it makes it, when you go back and look at it, you'll go, did that really happen to me? I actually made it through that. But before you write it, it does not seem like you can make it. Writing it makes it real.
Plus, we live in a day and age where they're really trying to take away our history. So, it's important more now than ever to pick up a pen and write it down, because pretty soon we won't be able to, they won't even acknowledge it. So that's why we encourage everyone, pick up a pen, get some paper, write it down. Because what you don't think is a story, or what you don't think is important, that's what people mostly connect with.
And you can journal in the computer, is not like writing it. It just doesn't have that same effect as writing it. So I always write mine first. Cheryl, you have one coming out, or is it already out? It's called Unsung Canaan Ballad. Is that already out, or is it coming out?
No, I'm actually writing it. My sister is doing the foreword for that book. I'm actually waiting on, like I mentioned to you, my copyright certificate, but I am close enough in the process that I do have some poems that I'm going to read, one or two today from that book.
Okay.
So it'll be available probably, if I'm guessing, I would say late summer, early fall, maybe. I think I might put it off until the fall now.
Okay.
But the first poem, this book is totally about, it's a book for the poets, the writers. I'm kind of paying tribute to them in this book. But Unsung Canaan Ballads is about how you navigate and deal with pain and suffering and death and grief of burying someone you love. The first poem, I went through this, and I went through this for about maybe 3 years consecutively. So some of these poems are really almost gut-wrenching, because when you have that kind of loss, it just is reflected in your writing. And I wasn't able to appreciate the music of my life. I couldn't appreciate it because I was not in a joyful place where I could focus on joy, because I was so down. So Unsung Canaan Ballads is about pain, suffering, and grief, and how you get to the center of your joy. It's a full circle of how you're able to come back to what you love and what makes you happy. This first poem I'm going to read, it's called Weeping Willow. Can you imagine hurt so acute that all of life's simple pleasures disappear? Music no longer sung. The familiar tunes suddenly stop. Your feet no longer dance. They can't remember movement. The radio has become covered in cobwebs and dust from lack of use. I remember a story in the Bible where the children of Israel were so depressed, they hung their harps upon trees. They were not able to play them anymore. Weeping willow, weep for me. That's how I feel. Life has swallowed me whole. Nothing left, not even skeletal remains of my beaten down soul. There isn't any music left in me. Loved ones dead and gone. What remains, we are now estranged. The guilty remain unnamed. Everything broken, everything strange. Forever changed. No longer the same. I can't hum, sing, or dance. This is my season of sorrow. My heart remembers music, song, joy, dancing. Why can't I be at that place anymore? I remember the music. At this point, sadness pervades. The PTSD of living has taken over. I hum the Negro spiritual to feel closer to my mother. I hum a sorrowful chorus of the Egyptians being swallowed up in the Red Sea. Weeping willow, weep for me. I'm lonely and afraid. There is no Moses to deliver me. I have hung my heart and instruments of music upon the highest tree.
That was really touching. I admire the fact that you can write through your hurt. It's okay for you to write through your hurt. I admire that. I admire anybody that can write when they're hurting, and that it's that you are able to put your hurt on paper. Like me, I can't do that. It's just I can't do that. Um, Artemis says, your words touched her soul. She lost her mom as well. You guys are really special. You all have blessed me so much. If I didn't know that we weren't related, if I didn't know that we didn't grow up together, I would swear that we knew each other all the time. And I want to tell you thank you for blessing me. And now I have something for the two of you. I wasn't looking for it. It's just there. A second, something's gone stupid on my computer. Have a second. Something's gone stupid on my computer. And I'm not sure what it is. Well, here it is. This poem I wrote with you two in mind, and it's called Supernova. Blazing the sky with jagged lines of color, raining down in a rhythmic display. Blues and pinks dance in the sky. In mesmerizing fashion, the supernovas align, encircled in a rich shade of gold, with poise and elegance. Vibrations of rhythm and blues give them a life of their own. Trails of luscious ink blot shapes fill the sky, tracing an elegant path through the vastness of space, guided by their silent dance partner, gravity. Magnificent bursts of metallic greens, violet, and reds, so eloquently placed like prisms trapped in sun's rays. Hues of purple suspended like icicles in a tranquil sky. The two supernovas are continuously dancing in rhythm, never fading, but ever lighting the skies, leaving footprints of luminescence in a place where only supernovas can dwell. You guys rock. I mean,
wow.
You are a testament to every Black woman there is, and I really appreciate you too. And I know Rob is tripping because I'm the one that's always going, Rob, You're taking it too long, Raw. You need to stop, Raw. But today was really worth it. It really was.
Thank you.
Doc, do you have a poem for me? You always do. Unmute, Doc. Unmute.
I
Say,
have something which comes out of my experience. The title is Lacrima. And Lacrima is Latin and it means tears.
Mm.
Ghosts of my tears fall into the other world of within, into the jamais vu of another existence. Tears which die aborting. Tears aborted, imprisoned by fear. Fear of a voice and a broad belt, both raised in anger by she who bore me. Memories of pain, memories of terror, an aunt's tale, an infant thrown across a room against a wall, tears of a broken self, tears which never fall.
Wow.
how sweet, Doc. You always show up and show out. Thank you for that piece. Wow. I know you have some words of wisdom. Now, you know you got to have two, Raw.
No,
One now and
let
one to
Doc,
take us out.
no, let Doc do a couple more. He's been waiting a long
Doc, you got some more for me?
Uh, when do I not? This one is titled B. The sacred river of life flows through time and space. Its waters swirl and eddy in endless combination and permutation. A convergence and invocation of change, streaming across horizons of forever. It is both mundane and magic. It speaks and sings in poetry and music of eons and ages, of past, present, and future, of worlds which are, yet have never been, all in the color, scent, and key of B. And your book, the one book title is Poems in the Key of Life. This is titled The Song of Life. In the echoing landscape of time is heard a wind-born song, the song of life, an intelligent poem of infinite colors and infinite tongues, sung by a chorale of eons and ages, a ballad of beginnings and endings and the odyssey of betweens, a canticle of yearning, the eternal yearning of life for itself, a meditation of forever in voices of stars. Thank you.
Wow.
You always come through, Doc. You always come through. Thank you so much. I just want you to know, ladies, I have truly enjoyed chatting with you. Just know, if you don't have any more admirers, here's one right here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Well, you have the mic.
Ladies, I just want to say thank you again. I appreciate the experiences. I think you and I, the three of us, may see things differently, but I appreciate the artistry, the poetry. Um, for me, that's the beauty of our world. We may see things differently, but can we still be respectful and embracing of each other's gifts and talents? Because contrary to popular belief, there is not just one Black experience. It's a mosaic of experiences that makes up this fabric. And it's the same thing with white, Chinese, anyone else. There's not just one. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the vulnerability, the sharing of your stories, sharing of your parents with us through you, right? Because I felt like I've gotten to know your father, particularly your father, a little bit more through his girls, right? And not girls in a derogatory way, because I'm a father of a girl as well, and she's always, even though she's in heaven, she'll always be my baby. And I still tell her, I whisper in her ear, "You're still my favorite. Just don't tell your brothers." So I'm grateful for that, and the continued support. And Lyris, I hope you'll come and attend more. Definitely love to hear more of your poetry, and I'd love to have a conversation, maybe for the last Above the Noise, where we're going to focus on Black excellence. You can come to that and add your voice to it as well. So
I'll drag her. I'll drag her along, Raw. Just because you want her to be there, I'll drag her. She'll come. She'll be there.
Chyrel, send her an invite to IPC. Share her, and are you on Gestalt also? I'll send you an invite to Gestalt, and I'll send one to Lyris. Yeah.
I don't know if you accepted my friend request, but I know I can tag you, so I'll make sure
I accepted your friend request.
Oh, okay, I can't remember because but I'll make sure I tag you more. And
okay.
To me, it's more important. Just like the Harlem Renaissance. Everyone talks about Langston Hughes, but man, Gwyneth Brooks was one of the powerful voices.
Oh, absolutely.
Talking about voices that demanded. But the point is, there are a multitude of voices that always makes up our understanding of anything, and I think it is upon us, even when we disagree with it, to be open to it and listen to it, because you don't know what you're going to hear. You don't know what you will take away. And this is why I never want to ever sit there and squash someone's experience, even if I disagree with it, in the sense of my worldview, because that's, at the end of the day, we're always talking from our worldview. And I try to see the multitude of sides, because it's not always that black and white. But so I'm grateful for you guys being here, the openness, the rawness, the truth, not just in your spoken words, but in the poetry that you've written, that you've recited and shared with us. So I'll end the show with two pieces. The first piece is a new piece. I think I just wrote it yesterday, and then I'll share a piece. The piece I'll share with you is the only time I felt like I was channeling an ancestor from the past.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, because when I write, I tend not to, I have no problems in capturing the pain and suffering, whether it's my own or of others that I admire. So, this first one is called No Shame. It's very short because I'm getting into these micro poetry writings now. Moments evaporate into the mystic as my breath propels me forward. I am my soul's choice of long ago, encased in this finite understanding. Trapped in the mind's perception of false evidence that appears real, I've learned to embrace the insanity that flows tears of pain, tears of joy. I hold no guilt for living this life, and no shame at my pending death. I am an unfolding ripple of gratitude that awaits the promise of tomorrow. End of piece. And then this last piece It's called How Did I Get Here? The idea of freedom eludes me. The idea of freedom eludes my mind and returns to the question, how did I get here? I can no longer make sense of my circumstances as each moment looks like the last. Competing thoughts flood my mind. Reality negotiates with the last of my untrusting hope. Body beyond exhaustion, fueled only by Yah's will. I now live unseated upon the unceded land of those whose tribe has no name. Not in my time, my land lies beyond the horizon, connected only through lucid moments in my dreams. It's been many moons since I felt the dirt of my village underfoot. Surrounded by the morning air, I welcomed the sunrise amber with my father. I laid lazily on the banks of the river where my grandfather swam as a boy. Rested in the safe embrace of my mother's stories as my imagination came to life in the star-filled playground at the night sky. Desperation and despair are my guides in this bittersweet moment of rest. Caught in an instant of disconnect, faint voices of my ancestors bang the drums of my memories in this confusion of bondage. Forced to live as a stranger with those estranged from their ways as we are now corralled in the dis-ease as the conqueror's bounty. Is it the land that makes me whole or the blood of those who came before? I did not choose this faith, for faith chose me to be enslaved. In this plane where time has no meaning, I endure the pain and suffering of indignity. Necessity and circumstance forge a new family of souls with whom I share this harshness. And together, we witness new life and share in mistrusted laughter despite it all. Sometimes I cry and cower in my shame and respite from the yoke and whip. Sometimes in my mind, I take to arms, but always I laugh in my tears, if only to make sense of my stolen manhood as I wait for my return to the land of my birth. Mm. I sometimes wish that breath would be foreign, but my demise is still a time away, for I keep fighting from my home within. I'm a descendant of the dark place that shed light upon the lands, beholden to my past, in the void of this now, bearer of a better tomorrow. And as I fight through the harshness to survive, each scar symbolizes the spilled blood of my strength and courage. So today, I lay here and rest. For tomorrow, I will face the madness yet again. To look fear in the eyes and to laugh some more. For I am still here. End of piece.
Wow. Wow.
You're always so deep. You're always deep, and they're always good. Thank you for that. I want to thank everyone, Artemis and Amber and Dot, for coming out and supporting Chyrel and Lyris. And Artemis is so eloquent, so poignant, so beautiful. Both pieces, Rob. I hope to hang out with you guys again. Rob, do you have anything else to say?
No, just continue to be, beautiful, beautiful, big, bold Black women and human beings, and, keep doing you. At the end of the day, that's all we can do is do ourselves. So keep doing you, and, just know maybe our fathers are hanging out up in up in the big sky with the big guys upstairs and looking down, going, "Can you believe that's our kids? Can you believe those are our kids? Right? Look what they're doing." So
Thank you so much for having us. We're so grateful
yeah,
and appreciative.
I'll try and get the video up really quick. So for those that are, that are going to watch it, and then please share it, because I think it's important. This is kind of more like a podcast, so it doesn't matter how many people are here, but the point is to share the video and get people to see it and get a taste, because we got a vault of videos with amazing poets like yourself. So, it's on us to go back and revise. When we talk about people trying to take our history, actually, I don't believe they are. We just need to be more diligent and go seek it out and find it, because it's out there. The series that we've been doing this for Black History Month, man, the people that I've been able to come in contact through the research, I'll say it again, and Chyrel, I know you've heard it. I use the analogy, we're like cockroaches, and I don't mean that in a negative way whatsoever. But they keep trying to get rid of us, they keep trying to exterminate us, and they cannot. We're not going anywhere. That's how strong and powerful we are. And I'm trying to get my brothers and sisters to realize that I don't care what the hell they do now, because they ain't going nowhere. Period. We're here at the beginning, and if there's ever an end, we'll be there. So I love you all. Thank you for the continued support. Stay safe, stay strong, hold your families close. Don't buy into all the nonsense, because we're more together than people realize. But there's still work to be done.
Keep being superstars, shooting stars, no supernovas, ladies. Keep being all of those things.
Thank you so much. And happy Black History Month, everybody.
Same to you, girl.